Are you self-employed? Don't think you need business insurance? Think again. Business insurance from Zensurance is a no-brainer for every business owner because it provides peace of mind. A lot can go wrong. A fire, stolen equipment, or an unhappy customer suing you. That's why you need insurance. Don't let the "I'm too small for this" mindset hold you back from protecting yourself. Zensurance provides customized business insurance policies starting at just $19 per month. Visit Zensurance.com today and buy your policy online in just a few minutes. Zensurance, mind your business.
Céline Dion.
My dream, to be international star.
Could it happen again? Could Celine Dion happen again?
I'm Thomas Leblanc, and Celine Understood is a 4-part series from CBC Podcasts and CBC News, where I piece together the surprising circumstances that helped manufacture Celine Dion, the pop icon. Celine Understood, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
If you ever feel like your vote doesn't matter, or if anyone ever tries to convince you that going out to cast a ballot is a waste of time, please remember British Columbia in the fall of 2024.
The full results of the 2024 provincial election in BC may not be known for another week. With the initial count on October 19th too close to call, election officials are now preparing for the final count.
Those final results, sort of, arrived on Monday. And what we are talking about here is the slimmest of margins. And not just in one riding. The difference between a razor-thin NDP majority or an NDP or even Conservative minority with the Green Party holding the balance of power came down to literally dozens of votes in a couple ridings. Those ridings, in fact, still require judicial recounts. But NDP leader David Eby says that he has been asked to attempt to form government. That government will be precarious, to say the least, just like the election was. So why was this so close? What could have swung it the other way? How does Eby plan to govern when he can't afford to lose a single member for a single vote? Just how, exactly, is this all supposed to work? I'm Jordan Heath Rawlings. This is The Big Story. Jen St. Denis is a reporter with the Tyee who has covered everything from the housing crisis to the overdose crisis and civic issues and, yes, this incredibly close election. Hello, Jen.
Hello.
Thank you so much for finding a little time for us.
Yeah, nice to be back.
Why don't you just start by giving the rest of Canada a sense of just how close this election was? I gather we finally have the mostly official results now?
Yeah, I mean, if I toss out the number 27 votes, does that give you a sense of how close it was?
Wow.
That was the riding of Surrey-Guildford. It was Conservative on election night on October 19th. We went to bed with the election really too close to call, but then we rolled on and we're doing final counts, absentee ballots, and those types of things. And just yesterday, we saw Surrey-Guildford flip to the NDP with just 27 votes. And that's not the only riding that was super close. There's another riding, Kelowna Centre, where the Conservative candidate won by just 38 votes. So yeah, this was a nail biter, and too close to call was basically every headline on election night. And it continued to be too close to call until just yesterday.
Until the final count came in yesterday, just how much was hanging in the balance? Like, how many potential outcomes were on the table as those vote-by-vote recounts were going on?
So the government would need 47 votes to form a majority in BC. So on election night, on October 19th, as polls kind of stuttered to a close, it was just this really frustrating, too close to call result where we had 46 NDP seats, 45 BC Conservative seats, and 2 Green seats. There's no majority in that scenario. So then you're thrown into these ideas of what can happen. And it sort of brings us back to what happened in 2017, where we had the NDP win 41 seats. We had the BC Liberals win 43. So I know it looks like they won, but they didn't. And then we had the Greens with 3. And what happened was that the NDP and the Greens then went back and made an agreement.
Right.
And we actually ended up with an NDP government.
And so Monday, BC elections revealed what we're calling, I guess, the official results of the election, though I gather, and we can talk about it a little bit, there's still some recounting to do. But what are the final seat tallies and what does this mean in terms of who governs and how?
Yeah. Okay. So I said that on election night on October 19th, we had 46 NDP, 45 Conservative, 2 Green. After yesterday, now we have 47 NDP. So they do have that majority they were looking for, 44 Conservative and 2 Green. So now the NDP has a majority, means that they're technically able to probably elect a speaker from their own party, and they shouldn't have to absolutely rely on the Greens to pass key confidence motions. And yesterday, the BC NDP leader, David Eby, did go to the Lieutenant General and she gave the go-ahead to form a government. However, there's 2 judicial recounts that still need to happen. And so David Eby was being quizzed today about when are you going to be sitting? Like, when is the legislature going to be reconvening? He says he wants to have a fall sitting. He wants to have a cabinet in place. He wants to elect the speaker, but he doesn't know yet when that's going to happen.
Does anybody think it's likely? And, you mentioned the margin of victory, like in the 20s and the 30s. The results could change by any significant amount. I know these votes have already been counted like extremely closely, right?
I guess the answer is we just don't know. And I don't really want to put myself in the position of making this, of being like, oh yeah, sure, they won't change. I mean, they probably won't change, but these are very, very close margins. It's possible. So that's why everyone's being quite careful still at this point. But the assumption is that, yes, it probably will be an NDP government continuing.
So let's take that assumption just for the purposes of discussing how the heck this is going to work. You mentioned 47 seats. That is, I believe, the slimmest majority possible. What does that mean for how the legislature will have to operate, assuming Eby can form a government?
So they really need to make sure that every single MLA is present for really key confidence motions. The joke in BC is that nobody better miss the ferry over to Vancouver Island. Legislature is located in Victoria.
Oh, right.
That's kind of the joke. Nobody better call in sick. No. And there's questions today, the legislative reporters are asking David Eby, would you consider having a Green MLA as the speaker? Would you consider having a Conservative candidate as the speaker? And he's like, sure, I'd be willing to work across the aisle with anyone. He does have one really clear line, and we'll probably be discussing this a little later. He says that he needs to work with people who reject hate, conspiracy, and division, willing to fight hate and racism. But he is trying to sort of extend his arms across the aisle, but from this slim majority position, meaning that he's not quite as beholden to the Greens as he would have been before. You
mentioned the speaker. In a legislature like this, how important does that role become?
It becomes very important, and we've seen incredible drama in the past over this because the speaker usually comes from the governing party, but the convention is that they don't vote unless it's to break a tie. So when you're in a very slim majority position or a minority position, it becomes a really big question of whether your government will fall.
Right.
In 2017, we actually had a BC Liberal MLA, Darryl Plekas, agreed to be Speaker of the House. He was ejected from his party for that decision. That was just extremely unusual, but that's what happened in 2017.
Ah, small business owner. So you wish to be at one with your enterprise. First, you must attain inner peace of small business insurance. This is Zensurance.
If you're self-employed, an entrepreneur, or a contractor, peace of mind is just a click away at Zensurance.com, Canada's leading source for small business insurance. It's quick, easy, and affordable. Get an instant price today at Zensurance.com.
What has Eby said about how the NDP will govern based on the results of this election, which, again, obviously hugely significant portion of the electorate, even in the ridings that his party won, voted for the Conservatives. Did he talk about how that may or may not change their agenda and what they plan to do?
Yeah, he really made sure to say, I have been chastened by this. I have listened to voters who are very unhappy about several key files like crime and safety, public drug use, people's concerns about the healthcare system. He's really being careful to say, like, listen, I've heard that you're not happy with how things are going on those really key files, and we're going to be concentrating on those. And he is, trying to say that he will reach across the aisle, but he is specifically saying, I like this one idea about moving community services to the front line that comes from the Greens.
Mm-hmm.
He is saying he will try to work across the aisle with the Conservatives. He's emphasizing that, he's familiar with some of them because some of them are former BC Liberal MLAs.
Right.
Like I said before, he sort of repeated several times that he does have this red line about, wanting to work with people who are really committed to fighting hate and racism.
Tell us why, for those outside the province who haven't been following the intricacies of this campaign, why that's such an important thing for him to state, and how that, I guess, is defining certain members of the Conservatives who were elected, not all of them. Like, explain the dynamics there a bit if you can.
Yeah, and it's clear that we say that this is some candidates, this is some, when we're talking about conspiracy theories, some comments by leader John Rustad. This is not all candidates. It's a very feisty, disparate group of MLAs here that we've elected on the Conservative side. But this has been a very nasty and troubled campaign in terms of, we've seen from John Rustad, the skepticism about vaccines, some conspiracy theory kind of language that's been said in the past, to being worried that kids are going to be forced to eat bugs. So there's that people kind of maybe snicker at or whatever. But then there's the kind of more troubling stuff, comments that have come out from some candidates like Bruce Chapman that are extremely hateful against Muslims. We've seen comments coming out from a Conservative candidate who did not get elected, but by not that much, in one Tafika Malahat, calling Indigenous people a very, very hateful slur. So we have just seen some very, very troubling and disturbing and upsetting comments come out in this election. And those are still, yes, the voters have spoken. They have elected some of those candidates, like Bruce Chapman was elected, but they're still sitting out there, sort of causing division.
You mentioned the Conservatives are, a diverse and fractious group when it comes to their opinions. I want to ask you that question about what we know about the NDP backbench, because, again, they can't afford to lose a single vote on an issue they want to pass, right?
Yeah, the NDP tends to have pretty strong party discipline. We don't generally see a lot of huge dissent. Although I will say in the most recent government, we did see one BC NDP MLA and leave the party over comments she made about Palestine that some people found offensive. And she ended up not running for a re-election, and she's publicly accused the party of not dealing with anti-Semitism properly. So blow-ups can happen in the NDP, but they're relatively rare. Now, if the situation were flipped and we were talking about the Conservatives, John Rustad has said that he'll allow his MLAs to vote however they want. He's not going to whip the vote. So there's that. And yeah, like I said, it's the BC Conservative as a party have been around for a long time, but this is like a renewed, re-energized party that was taken over in 2022 by these young, right-wing politicos. And it's got a lot of different, it's got people who were supportive of the truckers convoy. It's got people who are kind of just social conservatives. It's got people who are more like free market conservatives or were BC Liberal candidates. So it's got a lot of stuff going on in it. And I do expect to see quite a bit of drama in that party as we're going forward.
And where is the Green Party in all of this? I mean, they must have been salivating on election night with the opportunity to potentially hold the balance of power like I think they did back in 2017. That hasn't materialized, but do we know what they've said about their support for the NDP, their willingness to potentially align with the Conservatives? I mean, like we've been talking about, if the NDP are missing one vote, the Green Party has a shot of bringing down the government, right?
Theoretically. Yeah. So I think the Greens, I don't think they were thrilled on election night because their leader, Sonia Furstenau, who's been a very strong and interesting leader for them, she lost her seat. And so I do think the Greens did have a setback there emotionally because she has been a very strong leader for them. But they still do have those two seats. So they're doing okay. They're hanging in there. They had a breakthrough in 2017 when they elected 3 seats. They went down to 2 in 2020, and now they're staying at 2. So I don't think it's quite like a super exciting result for them, but they are holding steady. And my guess would be that they're looking forward, to the future, but they're not holding that really strong power position that they held in 2017, but they're still in the mix. And they would likely, looking at their politics under Sonia Furstenau, they were a pretty left-leaning party. So they would definitely be more sort of aligned with NDP values on most issues.
With those recounts still looming, it being so close, I know you mentioned that BC politics has some experience going down this road. Are people thrilled to be going down it again? What's the vibe down there?
I think it depends on what side of politics you're on. The BC Conservative leader, John Rustad, on election night, he vowed to, at the earliest opportunity, take down the NDP government and send voters back to the polls. So I think maybe if you're a really strong Conservative voter who's really, really unhappy with the NDP, maybe you're raring to go for another election. I don't know about you, but I'm certainly a little bit exhausted at this point, and I think many voters might be as well. So EB has really said, I want the legislature to work, and I am really willing to work across the aisle to make that work, because I don't think the voters want to go back to another election. But, we have a lot of dissatisfaction that we saw come up in this election with this amazing result for the Conservatives. They did go from 0 to 45.
Right.
And the government is going to really have to deal with that going forward. So expect to see things move forward on issues like, involuntary care, some of the tough on crime stuff.
That is actually one more thing that I did want to ask you, because we have talked to you often about your work on the overdose crisis and the downtown east side and that kind of stuff. On the beats that you regularly look into, what will you be watching for from this, I guess, quote unquote, newly chastened NDP government?
Yeah, we saw that the NDP kind of moving further to the right on some of those issues because of the pressure the BC Conservatives were kind of putting on them, and because of, the mood of the electorate, things like EB's decriminalization pilot did not work out.
Right. We spoke about that at length, I think.
There was so much blowback on that. So during the campaign, the BC Conservatives were really pushing involuntary care for people with addictions. It's very controversial. I think what I saw was that, John Rustad was not taking a ton of questions from the media, and his candidates were not going to a ton of local debates. And he didn't really ever get the chance to fully explain what he means by involuntary care, because it could mean lots of different things to lots of different people. Whereas David Eby was also pushing involuntary care, but he was taking more time to kind of explain what he meant. And he was sort of saying, it's for this very specific group of people who are already involved with the criminal justice system. And there's a gap between that and mental health. And that's what we mean. So I think that was interesting to watch, just one party kind of running a little bit more on vibes.
It'll be fascinating to watch whatever happens. Jen, a pleasure as always. And thank you for walking us outside of BC through this.
Oh, no problem at all.
Jen St. Denis reporting for the Tyee. That was the big story. For more from us, you can go to thebigstorypodcast.ca, scroll back as far as you like. You'll have a hard time getting to the end. You can also send us a suggestion for one of our next episodes. The way to do that is with an email to hello@thebigstorypodcast.ca, or by calling us at 416-935-5935 and leaving us a voicemail. You can find us in your favorite podcast player. You can check us out on Seeker. You can also listen to us on your smart speaker by asking it to play the Big Story podcast. Thanks for listening. I'm Jordan Heath Rawlings. We'll talk tomorrow.
Are you self-employed? Don't think you need business insurance? Think again. Business insurance from Zensurance is a no-brainer for every business owner because it provides peace of mind. A lot can go wrong. A fire, stolen equipment, or an unhappy customer suing you. That's why you need insurance. Don't let the "I'm too small for this" mindset hold you back from protecting yourself. Zensurance provides customized business insurance policies starting at just $19 per month. Visit Zensurance.com today and buy your policy online in just a few minutes. Zensurance. Mind your business.
Céline Dion.
My dream, to be international star.
Could it happen again? Could Celine Dion happen again?
I'm Thomas Leblanc. And Celine Understood is a 4-part series from CBC Podcasts and CBC News, where I piece together the surprising circumstances that helped manufacture Celine Dion, the pop icon. Celine Understood, available wherever you get your podcasts.